Welcome back to Asian Century Stocks. I am Michael Fitzel, and today we'll be discussing Prada. 1913 Hong Kong is the ticker. It's listed in Hong Kong, even though it's a European fashion house to a large extent. But most people do not look at this stock because it is listed in Hong Kong, even though really it's just been punished, I think, perhaps unfairly by this decline in the Hong Kong stock market. And that's perhaps why many investors think it's worth paying attention to. Remember, none of this discussion should be taken as investment advice. It's purely for informational and educational purposes. Speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. So Prada is a brand that's clearly part of our popular culture. This is from a movie called 10 Things I Hate About You, with the protagonist here, Bianca, saying that she likes her Skechers, but she loves her Prada backpack, and everyone wants to have these kind of more expensive products. Prada is a status symbol, and just as perhaps Christian Dior or Chanel bags and so on. So I think that's really the key part of it. It has this consumer mind share. And that's ultimately quite valuable. Now, it is a strange ticker. It is a strange counter in that it is listed in Hong Kong, even though the main business is listed in Italy. It is an Italian business, and the two controlling shareholders, Patricio Bertelli and Miuccia Prada, they are both based in Milan. It's really not a Hong Kong business, and I don't know why it's seen as such. You see here, it has a market cap of about $18 billion US, and it's highly liquid, $11 million US. That's very high, in an Asian context. Let's look at the story then. Where did it come from? The first Prada store opened by the former leather goods salesman Mario Prada in 1913. And it quickly became a designer and a supplier of leather goods, much of it imported from England to the Italian elite and perhaps later the French elite. And but it didn't grow much until the 1970s, when the granddaughter of Mario, Miuccia Prada, took over. She merged the business with her future husband, Patricio Bertelli, and they've been running it ever since. Now, Miuccia, she studied political science. She was formerly a member of the Communist Party and a self-proclaimed Marxist. So she has this kind of rebellious streak, and her creations kind of reflect that. Even though she wasn't trained as a designer, to my knowledge, she has been pushing the brand in terms of creating a stir, at all moments, and kind of reinventing the brand over and over again. One of the first major breakthroughs was this Vela backpack made out of nylon, and as such, that is kind of groundbreaking because nylon is a very utilitarian kind of material. But then she's selling luxury bags using this material. Now it's quite convenient because it can take water, but still, back then leather goods were more sought after. And she also made a stir with the first catwalk in 1988, when she displayed very minimalist designs in a period when more ostentatious designs were all the rage. So she likes to go against the grain, and I think that's really a part of what Prada is all about. Kind of allowing people to express themselves through clothing, perhaps making a statement about who they are, or perhaps living different parts of your personality, as she describes it. Now, 1990s, Miu Miu was created, which is a brand that's named after her nickname. Miuccia's nickname is Miu Miu. And then they went on an acquisition spree. They bought a stake in Fendi. They bought Church's, English shoewear brand. They produce Oxford shoes, loafers and such, mostly for men in the past. But in any case, they became a bit over-leveraged and had to deal with those issues eventually, selling some of their stakes. Now, today, they it continues to be run by Miuccia Prada and her husband, and but they're now in the late 70s. 2022, they hired the ex-CEO of Luxottica, the eyewear giant, and he's been focused, I think, on improving store productivity, which had been lagging at Prada. But really, I think the success has come from the new creations in terms of iconic products, uh, leather goods and such. So Prada represents 74% of revenues. Miu Miu 14%. This is from 2023. Now that's improved a great deal now in 2024 because Miu Miu is growing rapidly. I think it's now 25%. So the split has changed a little bit, but they're also the key two main brands, and they have a large exposure to Europe, even though they do have plenty of stores in Asia too. So these are the three main brands. So Prada is more of a luxury brand, I would say on par with Gucci or maybe even Christian Dior, that level. And the aesthetic is very minimalist. You won't the logotype isn't that large. You will perhaps not see it if you're not used to the look of its design of the logo. They produce handbags, shoes, clothing, accessories, but handbags is really the mainstay, at least historically. And they're known for like their nylon backpack, for example, or their Galleria handbag. Miu Miu is more of a youthful, playful fashion brand. They apparently 2/3 of customers are Gen Zs. And it's kind of more trend setting. They're allowing themselves more experimentation, and they also sell handbags. That's really also the mainstay for Miu Miu, but also clothing. That's also part of their what they sell. You can see here the split between leather and ready-to-wear and footwear. They changed the accounting a little bit in 2020, I think, so it might not be completely comparable, but it's clear that they used to be more focused on leather goods, handbags, and such, but recently selling more ready-to-wear clothing. So this is how Miuccia Prada describes the difference between Miu Miu and Prada. So Miu Miu less complicated and thought out as Prada. Prada is more sophisticated, considered, perhaps for an older client base, whereas Miu Miu is more naive. So they complement each other in that sense, in terms of targeting different demographics and classes of people. So what's led to Prada's success? And I think it's very clear that the fact that it's controlled by the two well, they're not founders, but they are kind of, you can attribute much of Prada's success to Miuccia Prada and her husband, who's been taking care more of the business side of things. And the fact that they continue to run it is a huge positive, I think, in many investors' minds. And you can see here that the brand is there. Both Miu Miu and Prada are well known globally, and in the list index of the hottest brands globally, Miu Miu is number one now. It went up to number one in the third quarter, and Prada is number three, flat. Although I think it was number two last year. But still, these are the two hottest brands pretty much globally, and that's worth a lot. I mean, obviously the industry is cyclical, but still, I mean, it's unbelievable to see the share price not moving up when they've had this kind of success over the past few years. I think another thing that they do well is that they have control over the distribution. They dealt with that issue since 2017. They've got rid of their wholesale channel reliance, and the bad part of having too much sales to wholesale channels is that you can get discounts, and discounts hurt the brand perception, whereas Prada controls most of its stores itself, so it can make sure the MSRPs are being adhered to. And I think that's really helpful in terms of making sure that it remains a status symbol. It's not seen as a as a off-price brand. As you can see here, the stores are very beautifully designed and clearly have this aura of exclusivity and high fashion. Some of the most iconic Prada products in the past, the Galleria bag was popular in the early 2010s, and The Clio bag is another one. The backpack, of course, like we spoke before, and these leather loafers. These are just some of them. There are so many to speak of here, really. But I think those are really valuable, iconic items that can continue to be sold for decades. One thing that I don't like about the brand is that it doesn't score well in terms of vertical integration. Its margins are really high, gross margins, but they're outsourcing a large part of their production, and that makes it hard to maintain a high quality standard across all products. To me, that's problematic, and a brand like Hermes would not do that. They have 75% in-house manufacturing, and that to me makes it. I mean, you could have a situation where they're selling really well, but perhaps the products are not durable, so customers get disappointed and they don't become repeat customers. Or yeah, or you just in the second-hand market you see products that are kind of not having stood up to the test of time, and people become disillusioned or kind of associate Prada products with poor quality. I mean, that's essentially what it is. So to me, that's a problem. They talk about they have 26 fully owned factories, and that's true, but most of the production is outsourced. And I went to Alibaba.com and I searched for Prada suppliers, and I found this company here, Dongguan Auspicious Industrial. I mean, clearly, I don't think it's that easy to maintain high quality standards, and perhaps it's the same problem that Gucci has had. It's also a very fashion oriented brand, that's perhaps less of a timeless approach in their product development. So I think that Miu Miu and Prada, they do belong to this aspirational section here, according to this website called Gesta Freak. I think this pyramid is very true, where Hermes is really at the top, Christian Dior, Chanel, whereas Prada is not quite up there in terms of brand perception, and neither is Miu Miu. It belongs in this aspirational tier of Gucci, Fendi, and so Salvatore Ferragamo and such. Now, Prada's done really well over the past few years. They've had a huge turnaround. I think the early 2010s, I mentioned the Galleria bag. It was popular. Now, perhaps less so. It became perhaps oversaturated. They expanded too quickly, and too many people in the mass markets started buying it, and that kind of leads to brand trivialization. And they were also too reliant on the wholesale market. I think perhaps that led to discounts and hurting the brand. In 2010, they decided they would reduce their reliance on wholesale. Now it's like 8% of total, and I think that was part of it. Since then they've been able to increase prices, MSRPs, and that's clearly helped margins come back up again. And another thing that happened was that they hired a designer called Raf Simons, a Belgian designer. He's here. He has been part of designing the Prada brand together with Miuccia, whereas Miu Miu is designed by Miuccia herself. And he's traditionally a menswear designer, so perhaps Prada is wanting to go towards that direction. But he's also perhaps a little bit too avant-garde, and I've seen some people question his, whether he has a future at Prada, given what's happened so far. But last few years, these are the products that have really made a mark on the brand. One is re-edition. They've had a number of re-editions, and mostly from the 1990s. And then the Prada loafers and the mini skirts and crop tops of Miu Miu. Ballet flats is another Miu Miu product that's the kind of really hit TikTok and social media. Got people talking. And this Arcadie and Wander bags, I think, are two of the most hottest products of Miu Miu right now. So even though you don't not buying the miniskirt, perhaps you buy the bags, and that's it. These are Google search queries. Clearly, they're doing well. Prada, they're perhaps more flattish growth wise, but prices have gone up. Also, Miu Miu, the popularity is just booming. Has been booming, and clearly they're doing something right. Here's some TikTok data from Ticket Trends. showing that Miu Miu is continues to gain popularity in terms of its its designs. You see here mostly bags on the left hand side here, so clearly that's what they're known for. Uh, One big thing though is that the whole industry, luxury goods industry, is not doing well. We see that across commentary from Hermes or Prada itself and a bunch of other companies. I think the key issue is the Chinese market, where consumer confidence remains weak. Perhaps that's due to falling property prices, but also credit growth is weak. And historically, credit growth, M2 money supply growth has been correlated with luxury goods consumption. So I think this has been a headwind over the past few years after the COVID stimulus. And there's really no end in sight for the downturn in the luxury goods industry. So Prada is simply outperforming in a very tough climate. And that's that. Another question mark I have, other than the industry backdrop, is that the latest spring summer collection doesn't seem to have hit the nerve or hit the right spots. I looked at the YouTube videos for all the fashion shows over the past few years for both Prada and Miu Miu, and looked at the comment section as well. And in the previous years, you saw comments like, "I was glad to see the colorful dresses. Prada gives us heaven on earth, and a fabulous collection. Hats off to Miuccia. What a remarkable show, breathtaking collection. I'm impressed with the creativity. Wow." But in 2025, though, in the last video, the last fashion show a few months ago, I also saw comments that were a little bit less positive. For example, one person said, "Even the models look like I don't want to wear this, hopefully never ever again." And another person said, "Are these Halloween costumes?" I'm not sure that's something, those kind of comments are what you want, even though it was certainly pushing the boundaries. I also felt that in that video, in the fashion show, you saw Raf Simons come out, and you could tell that he wasn't particularly proud of this show. And to me, that's a question mark whether that's going to impact revenues then in 2025 when these products are going to be sold. And to me, I'm not sure whether this actually matters too much, because they are primarily leather, like a handbag manufacturer or a handbag brand, but still a question mark. And this is actually same for Miu Miu with this latest spring summer show, having comments such as, "I don't get it. It seems like Miuccia is running out of ideas. This looks like an expensive version of Topshop." So I don't know. I mean, you can look for yourself. You can probably even analyze the sentiment of these comment sections below each YouTube video if you know Python, or you can scrape the data somehow. But it's not clear to me. Another thing is this quiet luxury trend that we've seen over the past few years. Perhaps that's over now, and quiet luxury that's typically becomes popular during times of hardship. Quiet luxury means that you don't have big logotypes. People go for minimalist types of products, such as the Galleria bag. But perhaps that's going down now. I'm not sure. Another question mark is this Y2K style. Perhaps 1990s retro style has become popular, and will that last? I'm not sure. Google search queries for Y2K aesthetics is going down. So plausibly, like this kind of bold colors and patterns might have benefited Miu Miu, because miniskirts, crop tops, those are 1990s items, and perhaps it's benefited from that trend, and perhaps no longer. I'm not sure. So what would change? I think not so much. They're talking about increasing the store network by about 3%, mostly in Miu Miu, but that's not very large. They want to go into menswear, but I don't see exactly what they're going to do to achieve that. Cosmetics line from 2023, that's doing really well, I think, together with L'Oreal. But really, I think the CEO, Andrea Guerra, he's talking about improving retail productivity, and that would help. But at the end of the day, it's about the product and merchandising. The stock price hasn't gone up all that much, which is really surprising, because Prada is firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, its success is really remarkable, and the stock price has only barely gone up. In terms of EV to EBIT, it's about half of the peer group average. It's not necessarily the right number because after IFRS 16, lease expenses is counted as financial, but even the P ratio is quite low, on an MTM basis, about 18.5 times. So that's a bit surprising. I think you can see that go down to mid-teens probably at some point. But I'm not assuming a lot more growth. I think the guidance is a bit conservative, and I'm also quite conservative in these numbers here. At the end of the day, it's about the fashion cycle. Do you think this is a cycle? I'm not sure. It could be, because they're not really timeless products. They're more in your face, kind of going against the grain, and I think perhaps Gucci, Balenciaga are kind of there's a risk that you might see something similar happen to Prada as well at some point, and and then it becomes a matter of tracking the data and looking at fashion shows, making sure that they continue to do well in the short term, and then change your mind if that ever happens. Quality concerns, that's more of a long-term issue, but it hasn't stopped Prada from doing really well over the past few years. Another question mark is this Petruzzo, the CEO or the managing director of Miu Miu. She resigned a few months ago. I don't think she was necessarily the driving force behind their success, but it's still a question mark, and they don't have a CEO right now, or a managing director of that business. So let's see. Really, I think a replacement that would help to Benedetta Petruzzo. But other than that, it's mostly about just tracking the alt data, and it still looks very positive. And I mean, this is the most hottest brand in the world, Miu Miu, and Prada number 3. So clearly there are companies that are not doing as well, and I think many investors will look at this and say, oh, perhaps a pair trade is would be of interest perhaps to some. But again, that's an introduction to Prada. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can write questions in the comment section or in the email, as always, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.